Ryan is making some technical adjustments. We are recording. So do we have a quorum? We do. All right, so then let's go ahead and start the meeting. The first is the approval of the June 2nd minutes and the July 7th zoning commission meeting minutes. Have you all had an opportunity to review? I will entertain a motion at this time for approval of the minutes of June 2nd and July 7th. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing no
I
discussion.
have one minor issue. My last name is spelled Beuchler.
Noted. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Solis, could you announce who made the motion and who was the second to facilitate the preparation of minutes?
Gentlemen, can you redo the motion with your name so we can make sure we get everything done?
Jackson moved.
Jackson moves second. Thank you, sir. Motion and second. Any other discussions, any additions, corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all, gentlemen. We'll move on to our first public hearing, our only public hearing of the day. It's a public hearing on a request submitted by John Gatz for a special use permits for the property at 211 Roletta Drive, legal descriptions CB 507D, block lot number 27. It's 0.83 acre to allow the owners to use the property for the installation of a 120-foot monopole cellular telephone tower, a 10-foot lightning rod, and a compound to house up to 3 wireless carriers. This time we'll open the meeting for public participation. Do we have anybody signed up? Please come forward if you've signed up to speak, and we'll look forward to hearing you. Not a problem. We got time, just not a rush. So if you'd like to go sign up, please sign up. Ryan, they can't find the sheet to sign in. We apply, just come forward. We apologize that the sheet was not there. So come forward one at a time and do your presentations.
Yes, I am Gabriel Duran Hollis. I'm also the mayor in Hill Country Village.
Excellent. Thank you for being here.
I think it's important for you to know that because as a elected official, you know, I know that you all need to account for your friends and neighbors, the citizens. I mean, we are in Covenant Presbyterian Church. It's a local neighbor for you. All we are asking for is an approval for the single pole tower for this, you know, for this communications issue. And I think the communications will help you. It'll help fire and police have enhanced communications. It'll also help several areas of Castle Hills that do not have immediate communications. Yeah, they do have communications, but it'll increase their immediacy if you can approve this tower for Covenant. I don't know all the technology or all that stuff, but it will help Covenant continue to do the community services that we have done for over 50 years. And I'm talking about feeding the poor. I'm talking about helping people that don't have the resources or recourses to do things. I mean, Covenant is not like Wayside and some of the other churches, but Covenant has done a tremendous amount of good for Castle Hills. And so I would ask for you to consider favorably to consider this proposal to approve the cell tower. It will help us do things that are good for your community, for everyone that is living in Castle Hills. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor, and appreciate you visiting with us.
Question? Question?
Is that, who's asking for a question?
Mr. Chair, it's Mr. McCormick.
Oh, yes, sir.
I have a question for the last speaker.
Well, no, Skip, what we will do is do the public hearing. We will listen to everybody, then we come back with our questions at the end of the public hearing, and we can ask specific.
Can I get his name again then, please? Sir?
Yes, sir. Gabriel Duran Hollis.
Again, please.
Gabriel Duran Hollis. No, sir, I am responding to somebody on Zoom. So, Mr. Hollis, you can have a seat. We'll get back to you later.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Public hearing continues. Yes, sir, your name?
Good
And-
evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is John Gatz. I live at 309 Bamborough Drive in Anna, Texas, and I am representing APC Towers, the individuals that are trying to erect the tower. What we have is a need that has been proved by several cellular companies, that we need citywide coverage at the street level, improving in-building coverage, and working on current and future capacity issues to make sure that there is no drop calls, or at least limit the possibility. We're trying to be proactive in order to move forward. On your slides there, you'll see that the majority of Castle Hills has got basic street level coverage. You can get coverage in the car. You have very difficult time in most areas getting it inside the house, in your bedrooms, where you need that reverse 911, where you send messages out saying that there's a tornado coming at 3 o'clock in the morning. With the new tower, we go ahead and we improve that 1,000-fold. Where everything was red, now it's all green. We've got photo simulations that show before and after. And we went ahead and added an extra set of photo sims on this go around, showing the representation of the tower next to the water. On your original set of plans that we sent you, we showed you that radio frequencies are everywhere. They're from the sun. They're from the moon. They have radio frequencies from your Bluetooth headset that far exceed the emanation factor than a cell tower actually does. We've had some people state that they have concerns that cell towers cause cancer, that there's a problem putting them inside residential communities. The American Cancer Society has said that there is no evidence, and cell towers has been around for over 40 years, and they don't have them. They have paging towers. If you take a look at your standard AM radio stations that are broadcasting 60,000 watts, and nobody has any issues with that at all. The Telecommunications Act of 1996 made a purpose of pointing out to the cell companies who the tower companies support that they have to provide telecommunications to the public. They have to provide it in home. They have to make it available to schools, to police, to city halls. And it also states under section 704, no state or local government or instrumentality thereof may regulate the placement, construction, and modification of personal wireless service facilities on the basis of the environmental effects of radio frequency emissions to the extent that such facilities comply with the FCC's regulations concerning such emissions. That being said, APC Towers respectfully requests a special use permit to construct the wireless telecommunications tower. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your information. Next speaker. Yes.
Mr. Moderator, my name is Dan Milford, M-I-L-F-O-R-D for the record. I am the pastor at Covenant Presbyterian, and I want to express gratitude to your commission for the work that you are doing in our community. And to express that we trust that the work that you do will be for the good at the end. So we entrust to you the decision as you feel led to make it.
Thank you, sir.
I do. You're certainly welcome. I do want to express that the well-being of children in our community is of utmost importance to our congregation and to our leadership. When this proposal was brought to us, that was a question that we had as well, because we had heard rumors that cell towers could be harmful to children. We investigated that thoroughly. We have people in the medical professions in our congregation. We have engineers in our congregation. And in our investigation, we were satisfied that there was no evidence that really demonstrated that the tower would cause harm or could cause harm to children in our community. I recognize that concern is out there, and that no evidence does not prove that it can't happen. But we don't live our lives based on every possibility that could possibly happen, even when there's no evidence that there's a true risk there. And so I do want you all to know that we did our due diligence, investigated pretty thoroughly about any health concerns that there might be related to the tower, and we found none. The tower will bring in some revenue for Covenant. It's not the kind of revenue, as though any were the kind of revenue that would make it worth it to us to endanger the citizens of Castle Hills, particularly the children of Castle Hills. That would not happen. There's not enough money out there to lead us to make that kind of decision. I do want to share just one of the areas of ministry that is a way in which Covenant is serving Castle Hills and San Antonio beyond, and that is that 4.5 years ago, our congregation felt that we were being called to serve in an area that was underserved in our community, and that led to mental health ministry. We're now the hub where NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, one of the foremost organizations doing mental health work, holds its monthly luncheons when there's not a pandemic afoot, holds its monthly luncheons at Covenant, teaches courses for parents or for family members of people who have been diagnosed with a mental health condition, and hosts courses for peers, for people who themselves have been diagnosed with a mental health condition, to try to break stigmas, to try to build understanding, to try to help people live their fullest life. That's also led us into starting a national organization within the Presbyterian Church, which I have the honor and joy of being able to lead at this point, of trying to build a network of churches where mental health ministry, our hope and our prayer is that in a decade or two, mental health ministry will be as common in congregations as children's ministry is today. So as we strive to serve both Castle Hills and the community far beyond, know that that the concerns of the community are our concerns as well, and questions that we ask in advance. Ultimately, we see this as a public utility, something that will serve the larger community more than it will serve Covenant in the future. And we hope that your commission will see it that way as well. Thank you very much for your time and your attention.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, who would like to speak next? Since we're doing it ad hoc. Are there any other speakers for the public hearing? Yes, ma'am.
Well, I came over, so I probably should
What I figured.
get up and say hello. I'm Denise Haley. I live at 220 Lundblade Lane in Castle Hills. I've lived in Castle Hills since 1986 and have been a member of Covenant Presbyterian since 1998. And all I can say is that I know the people who have worked very diligently to do this right on the side of the church, and that we would always want to be good neighbors and an organization that Castle Hills can be proud of, and that we can do our best to be our best to serve the community. And if this helps serve the community, I hope you will vote favorably. I got to admit, when I first thought about it and really looked at it, I thought, oh man, are you kidding? You know, this is, but the more you look at it, it's infrastructure. It's part of the future. It's part of what we need to do. And, you know, it's not like there aren't other towers in the city that you can see when you look. So, you know, it's something that, yes, some people will see it, but after, you know, a certain time, it blends just like most things do. So anyway, I want to thank you for all the work that you do in the community, and Mr. Rappley, especially for all the support and everything that he gives. And thank you all for your time that you're giving to make our community better. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers in the public hearing that would like to speak? Yes, sir. Please come forward. Your name, your address. Your comments are welcome.
My name is Dennis Screwhawk. I live at 112 South Garden View. And I really about the only comment that I have. I mean, I'm not up here to say, you know, yes, I want to, no, I don't. But I was wondering if it's possible for the whoever's going to build this communication tower, if they can provide RF emission level studies to the for our council, and maybe that information could be made available for the neighbors, because I think that might be one of the concerns, you know, versus the aesthetics of you know, how it's going to be. And then I would take it a little step further, is if they could provide those RF level studies, if once the transmitters of the tower are put on, activated, if they can do field testing and provide that to our city council too, for the, you know, for public view. I'd just like to make sure that, you know, based on the calculation numbers that they do, that once everything's up and running, you know, that they're not by some chance exceeding. And I think these, for the levels, RF emission levels, I think that's probably all covered under the Federal Communication Commission regulations and all. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, sir. The public hearing is still open. If anybody else would like to come speak, please come now. Seeing no one else ready to speak, then I will close the public hearing. The time,
What about my question, sir?
sir, we will go after the public hearing is closed, then we have the opportunity for commissioners to speak. 7:21, public hearing is complete. At this point is where we have our open discussion when the commissioners can now speak. Mr. McCormick, please
I
lead
have
us.
I have a couple of questions for the first speaker. And he is, as I understand, the mayor of Hill Country Village. And I appreciate.
Let me get him up here for you.
Okay.
Mr. Durant Hollis, can you please come to the microphone, sir? So one of our commissioners would like to ask you a few questions.
yeah.
Go ahead, Skip.
Mr. Hollis, you'd mentioned that you were mayor of Hill Country Village. Are you also a member of the Covenant Church?
Yes, I am.
And is that,
I'm also an elder there.
I see. Okay. So you come essentially as representing the church, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. That's all I have for him, sir.
Well, there you go, Mayor. Again, thank you for being here. You can go back to the audience. At this time is the discussion amongst us as commissioners to be able to decide what to do. I'll need a motion to help us move in the right direction, whichever that may be. So does anyone entertain a motion at this time?
Mr. Solis, could you formally open item 4 on the agenda,
I
please?
apologize, you're right. Let me go back to that. Item 4 is a discussion of possible action on recommendation to City Council on a request submitted by John Gatz for a special use permit, SUP, for the property of 211 Roleto Drive, legal description CB 507D, lot 27, 0.39 acre, to allow owners to use the property for the installation of a 120-foot monopole cellular tower, telephone tower, a 10-foot lightning rod, and a compound to house up to 3 wireless carriers. We have a few questions before a motion. Mr. Herndon.
Thank you. I had a couple of questions of Mr. Getz.
Yes, sir.
We had spoke a couple of meetings ago, and I'd talked to you about the aesthetics of this.
Yes, sir.
And since that time, you've submitted some more photos, and I've taken a look at them. What I was wondering, has there been any upgrade toward the aesthetics, or is it still a chain link fence?
Right now, it's a chain link fence. However, that is adjustable.
Is that
depending on
something
your
y'all would look at?
preference. You betcha.
Okay. And how about a possible hat on the tower?
I've spoke to the tower company. They are resistant to that. But again, if it's something that the commission wishes in search of their approval, then I believe that they would amend to that as well.
Okay. Okay. And and I'm not totally educated on the hats. I did some reading on them. They can be made for size to cover all antennas currently as well as in the future.
What
Is that
they
correct?
would do on that, sir, is the leasing space on the tower for the top individual would be 10 feet. They would put a hat on it that would come down 12 feet. So it would cover the exit point where the coax comes out into the antennas. When the second carrier goes on, they would add the second.
Okay.
And so forth.
Okay. And finally on this antenna, and I understand that it'll be 5G capable,
Yes.
provided the equipment is added to it.
Yes.
Can this also be used as one of the mini towers as well as a regular 5G tower? In other words, are they sometimes used as full-size 5G towers and mini towers at the same time?
Yeah, what happens, and one of the misconceptions about 5G is that the little bitty antennas that they would put on the street level or over in the neighborhoods are really good because they provide excellent download to the homes in the area. It doesn't go anywhere unless there's a tower like the tower we're installing. Because the tower we're installing is a hub that links it into the system. The little mini towers don't have that capability.
Right.
What they do is they broadcast to the tower itself, which then goes into the system and routes the calls.
Right, but this being used as a hub, could it also be used as a mini tower for other carriers?
Oh, yes,
Okay. All right, that's all the questions I
yes,
have. Thank you.
yes. AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, they're all capable of going on this.
Okay.
Mr. Gass, before you leave,
Yes, sir.
in reference to your coverage presentation, you show us the before coverage. Castle Hills is what's encircled in red. I mean, in the circle, is that Castle Hills?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then, so when you bring in the new tower, it pretty much eliminates most of that, I suppose, a deficit in coverage
Yes,
that you're proposing that this new tower will be able to assist.
yes.
And the data collection that it came from, who did this?
That particular one was done by T-Mobile. What you'll find is that most carriers piggyback on all the existing towers or the rooftops that are in the area. And so most people in the different telecommunication industry have roughly the same type of coverage footprint.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Gatz while he's here?
I have a question for Mr. Gass.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead and finish your question to the commissioner here.
Yeah, no, they're not in the area yet. When they come up, we would go through this process as well in order to go ahead. And what they would do instead of asking for.
Can you
one
make sure you get
particular-
closer to the mic?
Oh, sure.
'Cause we have to-
What they would do is instead of asking for one particular tower, I'd fill out an application for a dozen mini towers and give you every single one of the locations so that we could discuss that and then, of course, go through the voting process.
Okay. Mr. McCormick,
Yes, Mr. Gass, do you have any contracts presently with any carriers?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we do. We have the first carrier already on board, which is why we're pursuing this tower. APC Towers does not do speculation towers. They wait until they actually have a client on board.
And you just have one client, or are there others?
Right now, there's one. Most carriers plan their systems about 2 years in advance.
are there any questions for Mr. Gatz while he's up here?
Um,
Thank you, sir. Thank you, appreciate it. We're still having discussion. Commissioners, anything else?
I have some points for general discussion when that comes around, Mr. Chairman.
Skip, can you speak up a little louder, sir?
Yes, I have points for general discussion when we get around to that.
Yes, sir. We'll be there in a second.
Mr. Snow, I'm looking at the information that you gave us on the emission standard, section 704.
Yes, sir.
The way I read that is when they come apply for a tower, unless there's some magic reason, we almost have to approve it.
That is the edict from the Federal Communication, well, from the U.S. Congress in Section 704 of the Telecommunications Act of 1996. I first learned about this statute sitting where you, Mr. Jackson, and the other commissioners are sitting as a member of the Castle Hill Zoning Commission. And we were directed to this language when that commission was asked to consider an application for a somewhat different, but also a tower. So if there's action to deny under 704B, Sub 3, that decision needs to be in writing and supported by substantial evidence contained in a written record. And then sub 4, which was quoted earlier, I believe, by Mr. Getz, indicates that the effects of radio frequency emissions really can't take a part in this action unless those emissions do not comply with the FCC regulations on that topic.
And I would conclude that what this recommendation that does tell you is that you cannot use emissions as a reason for denial. That's all it says. Now, aesthetics can come into play, location can come into play, and other things can come into play. Basically, it says if you're going to make your argument for denial based on the emissions, that you cannot. And so from my perspective, there could be other reasons, and they need to be articulated as the driving forces other than emissions. Mark, would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Skip, I believe you have some other questions, sir, and discussion.
Well, I have some discussion items. I passed out some documents which may be of some use to the commission. I think you should each have a handful of papers. There's 3 that are typed, and 2 of those are stapled together.
Would you like to walk us through it, sir?
Yes, if that's okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, my first paper is the single sheet.
I, for one, not sure that you should be even addressing any of the issues in.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Walter, sir?
I, for one, am not going to consider anything I believe that Mr. McCormick is going to be bringing up, and that I believe what he's intending to bring up is barred and banned by the Telecommunications Act.
I'd appreciate the consideration of
However,
an
Skip, let me,
opportunity to present my information before you make a decision, sir.
Mr. Bueller, I mean, Walter, you are correct.
Certainly.
However, as a commissioner, Mr. McCormick has the right to be able to provide his information and his view, and that is what we will hear at this point. Go ahead,
He
sir.
does. Thank you.
Okay. The first sheet is a single sheet, and I had hoped to get more people to participate in the zoning commission process. And I addressed all of the issues that I thought were pertinent. Just as a matter of background, I've been an amateur radio operator since the 50s. I have had several tours in the military where my primary concern was radar, an 8 megawatt sail with a surveillance and aircraft control function. And I've dealt with aircraft weapon systems and radar. So I have a good deal of background experience in electromotive radiation. But I agree that's not to be concerned. Mr. Gatz, however, brought up the radiation issue in his presentation, and I'd just like to go over a couple of things from what I've been aware of in the past. The first, the FCC new RF exposure regulation handout, which I provided to you here, was in consideration in 1996, 1997, when those regulations were passed. And at that point, on page 4 of the of this.
Sir, we lost you. We will wait.
Okay, there we go. Can you hear me now?
Welcome back.
Okay, sorry about that.
Not a problem.
Comes of having an extra thumb. In any case, the point here is that when they did these limits in 1996, what they were looking at were controlled exposures of 6 minutes and uncontrolled exposures of 30 minutes average. What we're talking about in the school situation is that the kids are in school beneath the antenna area for 265 days a year, about 6 hours, sometimes 8 hours a day. That was the point to that. Yeah, as far as the other issue on the cell phones, if you look at the one that's headed with the American Cancer Society seal, talking about cell phone radiations, they make the point quite well that there is no affirmative proof that there is a definite hazard. The fact is that there are some cases where there have been cases of leukemia that occurred in the vicinity, but the problem is in proving causation. So if you look on page 5, you find that the International Agency for Research on Cancer has classified RF radiation as possibly carcinogenic to humans based on limited evidence of a possible increase in risk for brain tumors among cell phone users. Now, there's still inadequate evidence for other types of cancer. This article, however, is from a 2020 publication of the American Cancer Society. Now, the fact is that while there may be law, as may be pointed out, when the government makes a law, it makes it the law, but it doesn't make it right. Nevertheless, we can't consider any of the radiation issues as a concern. So I think we move on. The next thing I have in my packet is a series of 4 or 5 photographs that show the towers that are in use here in Castle Hills or in the vicinity nearby. There are 3 of them. There's one at Lock Hill and Northwest Military. And if you look at the sheet of paper, the single sheet with a photograph of a tower running long ways, portrait style, up and down the page with 3 heads on it. That tower is located right south of northwest of 410 at Jackson Keller, just west of Jackson Keller. And you can see that this particular one has at the base a little compound where there's a building containing the transmitting and receiving equipment and that sort of thing that will be used in connection with the tower. The second photograph I want to call to your attention is a photograph that has the chain link fence at the base of it. So this appears to be a photograph of what is a mini tower that's located near the Red McCombs Collision Shop, again, just west of Jackson Keller and 410. And it has a single head on it, as you can see, and I have to say that the construction on these buildings and the fencing all looks pretty shabby to me, and it has some real aesthetic problems. The third set of photographs is a photograph of the base of a building with the tower going up beside it, and that's the building that's located directly south of the intersection of Lock Hill, Selma, and Northwest Military. There's another vertical picture running up and down the page with a section of the tower and this building in it, but doesn't show the top hat on the tower. My problem is taking a look at these things, that they are obviously commercial installations. I don't think they're suitable for a residential installation. They are, in so many words, ugly. I believe that they will reduce the property value of the surrounding properties. And for that reason, I believe they should be, that this particular SUP should be denied. Now, I've heard comments from Mr. Gatz and others that we're going to get so much better coverage. And I have looked at and have asked for input from people with regarding the coverage, and I've not had a single comment or call from anyone about that. I have had 2 people who sent me emails who said they opposed it, but their basis for opposition was the electromagnetic radiation that would be produced from the tower. So those wouldn't be considered. However, I think it's reasonable for us to consider the residential character of our neighborhood, the proximity to residences, and the impact on property values surrounding that particular tower. So I recommend that we consider denying the SUP on the basis of reducing the damage to property values, and I think that is permissible under the act that Mr. Schnall has provided us.
Is that your motion, sir?
Have we not had a motion already?
No, sir.
Okay, then I'll make a motion that we deny the SUP on the basis that I've just stated, based on the photographs that I've provided, and the fact that we believe that the location of towers in the residential neighborhood will damage property values, and I'll offer that as my testimony, having had a number of years of experience in the real estate business as a sideline while I was in the military and while I was practicing law.
Thank you, sir. We will now need a second for the motion to proceed. We will need a second. Seeing no second, the motion is denied. We'll need a motion now.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment in the motion.
Yes, sir.
I've driven around that area and I've looked at the other cell phone towers in our city as well as a lot of others, a lot in the last 2 months. And what my belief is I understand that we're probably going to need this additional communication capacity in the future, especially with 5G. The many towers, I'm not sure of the exact location where they're going to be placed, but it appears that it's possible a lot of them can be done in the alleyways and not be visible. But there will need to be additional tower space in Castle Hills to manage 5G. As far as a location goes, this property is right between the church and a residential area. It's not visible from as many residential properties as one might think. It is visible from the highway. It's very visible from here at this location where the city hall is. But I think that that if we're going to stay current with the wireless communication needs that that we do foresee in the future, that we should approve this, but with some requirements. I mean, for aesthetics, because there are several neighbors who would be able to see it. It appeared to me there's 2 or 3 that could actually see it through their backyard if they didn't have privacy fences. My thoughts were, I'd like to see a masonry fence similar in construction to the church, either brick or stucco in similar coloration. And
You can amend it, the motion accordingly.
I would amend that, and I will amend it. And the other thing is, I believe that a hat on this would just dampen it a little bit. It may make it a little more modern. There's not a lot of them with hats in this area, but there are parts of the state where most of them have hats. I mean, basically, it looks like a big triangle that covers the antennas that are visible, and it just it looks like a tower with a triangle hanging over it, a triangle tube hanging over it. And it hides a lot of the wiring and a lot of the antennas, especially when you get 2 or 3 carriers and there's all these different groups hanging on there. It'd be nice to cover those up. So I'd like to make a motion that we recommend approval, but with the requirement of a masonry fence high enough to cover all ground equipment, as well as a requirement for a hat to cover all pole equipment. And that's my recommendation.
So we have a motion with amendments. We will need a second. We will need a second. I will second the motion. So therefore, we have a motion and a second. Now we have discussion on the actual motion that's been made. Walter, you had some earlier comments. Any comments on what has been motioned?
Not at this point. I
Okay.
just wanted, I'm not going to take into consideration any of the environmental issues. So,
Thank you, sir.
but,
So we have a motion and we have a second, and I do have some comments before we take the vote, as we have discussion on this actual motion. I want to first appreciate our neighbor, pastor, for being here. I think it's important that we recognize, and you recognize, the fact that it is somewhat of a revenue play for your organization, for the church. There's nothing wrong with that. I accept that. I understand it. If we're going to do services, quite honestly, sometimes we have to have revenue to be able to provide services to the community. So there's nothing wrong with that admission and understanding. The admission or the understanding that this is going to help us overall in terms of data collection and utilization is a little bit of a stretch to me. And it's something that is going to be something that we'll have to look at. But this is just a recommendation after our review that goes to City Council to make the decision. I appreciate the information that showed the work that the church does in the community in terms of assistance, the different areas and organizations that participate with the church. I think it's important that I cannot emphasize enough that, you know, what we have learned is as neighbors, we understand each other. You live here in terms of some of the members that are here, and at the same time, you show a response to the needs of our immediate community. So we appreciate that, right? It's not just about our boundaries, but even the needs that exist throughout the city. I think one of the things that I appreciate also from the commissioners is the fact that one of the things that when we become a commissioner and we take an oath of office, we adhere to the laws and the Constitution of the United States. What you saw today and what you've heard today is fundamental to everything, the right to be heard. And you heard our commissioner make his presentation. You've heard our commission take the presentation. And this is an example of that. And so while we may not agree with everything, a person and a commissioner's right to be heard is essential and not to be cut off. So I appreciate everybody's comments at this time. Seeing no more discussion.
Oh,
All
wait a
those in
minute. I
favor-
think I've got an issue.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
A
sir.
couple of questions, if I might, for Mr. Gatz. Would it be appropriate to
Sure.
ask?
Well, no. At this point, we're talking about the motion, sir. Mr. Gax's presentation is over. So the
Well, I know, but
come
my
down to
my questions involve Mr. Gatz's response to the motion.
Well, the motion is in reference. We have to stay focused on the motion. So
I am focused on the motion, and my questions will relate directly to the motion.
go ahead and ask. I will not ask you, Mr. Gatz, to respond. Just go ahead and make your comments, Commissioner.
Well, I'd be interested to know how Mr. Gatz would respond to the motion and how he thinks it would, whether or not it would be practical for us to request a fiberglass or other cap to cover the antenna heads that have been addressed.
He's indicating that he does not have a problem with the motion.
That's what I wanted to know.
Yes, sir. So we have a motion. We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those
No.
opposed?
No.
Any abstentions? Seeing none, the motion carries. Gentlemen, thank you very much and good luck at the City Council. Item number 5 is discussion and possible action on the recommendation to the City Council on the minimum lot size area as set out in section 50-64D of the City of the Castle Hills Code of Ordinances. Now, it's my understanding, gentlemen, that this is not, there's still more work to be done. While it sits on our agenda, I ask that we defer it to the next meeting, and it'll sit on our agenda till the city manager and his staff gets everything ready for us to make a decision.
Mr. Chairman, a motion. Mr. Chairman, I move, in view of the fact that we still have work to be done on this item, and that we have no materials attendant to the packet that would help us to resolve such an issue, I move that we table it to the next meeting.
Thank you. I'll need a second. We have a second, a motion and a second. Any discussion? See no discussion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Motion carries.
Chairman, we'll have it next meeting. We do have a plan and analysis, and we will bring a staff
Whatever.
recommendation forward.
At this time, gentlemen, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I have an announcement.
Yes, sir.
I would like to express my appreciation to all of the members of the public who came to speak tonight, whether you were for or against the item that you spoke on. I'd like to express my appreciation to Mr. Gatz for being so patient with providing information, and to Pastor Milford for coming and making the presentation on behalf of the church. I, along with the chair, I agree that the church function is a crucial function to any society. And I appreciate the fact that you're here doing the work that you're doing and appreciate the fact that you're in our city.
And as a neighbor that you're here. Thank you, sir. We have a motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. 7:51. Congratulations.